In anticipation, I wait, I yearn to see, to feel the sensation of your aura taking me. The fireflies spark the incandescent glow, brighten the dark, both our souls now
When my oldest
know
son received his Bendelora from my brother, I realized that in 12 short years I would be yielding up my crown to him. With the construction of both the temple and the palace, it seemed as if the years themselves were flowing with rapidity behind us, as the water of the sea recedes with the same swiftness behind the stern of a ship in a brisk wind. After my son was installed in the temple barracks as an acolyte, I met with my brother in the cavern that was to be the office for the keeper of the soul of Estolia. I looked around the chamber and was struck forcefully that here, in this chamber, the progress was most notable. 3 features grabbed the attention of those who entered the office: the massive conference table, the green and black marble statue of Zacharias, and the bastet, as Key's wife Mary called it, nearly half my height, on a pedestal fashioned by Key, the solid gold statue of a feline. Theodulphus Hieronymus, Capitulo 4.
Later that evening, Wraith, Cassie, and Lillian made a grand entrance wearing the dresses that Cassie dreamed up the day she met Wraith. The rest of the family were already in the large lounge. Morgan and Isaiah were quick to claim their wives, leaving Wraith standing alone just inside the entrance to the room. She still felt shy around this gregarious family. Gregorio came over to her, his expression warm and appreciative as he admired her new dress.
"Come, Wraith, I should like to introduce you to my cousin Zeke,"
he said. But before they could move, his parents approached and Georgiana took her son's arm, while Theo took Wraith's. Wraith sensed something underlying the interaction between Gregorio and his parents, but did not have a chance to try to analyze it. Theo tucked her hand in the crook of his arm and steered her towards a man in a wheelchair. "This must be Zeke," Theo said, along the same vein as similar jests throughout the last 2 weeks.
"Perhaps my nephew Zeke will fall in love with you, Wraith. In Estolia we believe that men naturally fall in love when they turn 30. As it is Zeke's birthday tomorrow, it would be the perfect time,"
Georgiana added.
"We would certainly love to keep you here in Estolia forever. You fit. Not everyone does, but you do."
Wraith glanced at Gregorio and saw that his expression was dark. A reflection, perhaps, of the instantaneous rejection she felt inside herself at the thought of anyone other than Gregorio falling in love with her. She looked away from him, aware of the heat of a blush on her cheeks. They were at the casual arrangement of chairs surrounding the man in the wheelchair.
"Have a seat, please,"
he said to them.
"I feel like I am lacking in manners every time someone joins me, especially lovely ladies I have never met."
He grinned up at her. Wraith quickly sat in the chair he indicated, smiling at him. He was fair, but much darker compared to Gregorio. Even without the wheelchair and complicated device protecting his leg, she would have been able to tell that he was recuperating from a serious injury. The skin on his face was puffy, slightly yellowed, and the lines between his brows looked recent, but permanent.
"My cousin did not tell me his new assistant was so beautiful."
He took her hands in his, like Theo did when she first arrived, and his smile was even warmer than before as he said,
"My name is Lazarus Ezekiel, and I feel like I have been resurrected just to meet such a lovely, radiant visitor."
"It's a pleasure to meet you,"
Wraith said. When he showed no signs of letting go of her hands, she said, clearing her throat,
"Are you called Lazarus, Ezekiel, or Zeke? I've heard all 3.
His hands squeezed hers tightly and his eyes flicked over to Gregorio before returning to focus on her.
"I normally go by Zeke, though you may call me Ezekiel if you prefer."
Gregorio's arm slid around her waist, pulling her hands from Zeke's.
"I am sorry. I have not done a very good job of making the introduction."
Gregorio's voice was deep, loud in a sudden lull in the conversations swirling around them.
"Wraith, this is Lazarus Ezekiel Zacharian. Last resort to his older brother Balthazar Isaiah Zacharian, the 88th king of Estolia. Zeke is the first consul to the king, second son of the 87th king of Estolia, and the one destined to keep the soul of Estolia once he finds the woman able to keep his soul.
Wraith wondered why Gregorio was suddenly being so overpoweringly formal. His arm around her waist was holding her very tightly, as if he did not really want to introduce her to his cousin.
As I said, please call me Zeke.
Gregorio's jaw clenched and the two measured glances for more than a minute before Wraith felt him relax slightly, though he pulled her even closer as he said,
Zeke, this is Wraith Michelle Veroni, the best assistant I ever had. She is...
He broke off what he was saying abruptly. After a second, she turned and looked up at him. He was looking at her strangely and he had gone pale. His eyes were troubled as they met hers. He opened his mouth but it was several seconds before he finally started to speak again.
Wraith is...
His complexion, pale next to the silver blonde of his hair, suddenly regained its color, as his cheeks flooded with red. He was also breathing heavily and his eyes moved rapidly, as if he was trying to read a message in her eyes. He shook his head and closed his mouth and turned to look at his cousin.
She is the best assistant I have ever had. I do not intend to ever let her go.
A muscle jerked in his cheek. His chest rose and fell. She shifted her position slightly, wondering what was going on.
Congratulations, cousin.
Zeke said softly. She turned to look at Zeke. His expression was a strange mixture of jealousy and pleasure. His voice neutral again, Gregorio said.
Deity knows us, grants those with the greatest faith the blessings they deserve. You will heal.
He looked down at Wraith and smiled at her. He seemed to have recovered from whatever had disturbed him so profoundly. He did not look back at his cousin as he added,
I believe that you will overcome your current trials, Zeke. Even after only 1 week of instruction with my father, I feel as though I can say this with the strength and weight of the keeper of the soul of Estolia. A role I am convinced will never be mine. I would much rather be a humble breeder of Andestolians than take on your future job.
Shortly after this strange exchange, Gregorio and Zeke relaxed and spoke of more general topics, telling Wraith about some of the peculiar features of the island. While they chatted, Gregorio kept her tucked up next to his side, every so often looking down at her with a strange smile and hugging her close.
The glorious aura supplies us, heals the cavernous rift of our soul's emptiness. The fireflies spark the incandescent glow, brighten the dark of our souls now know. Fascinated, entranced, your aura speaks to me by deity enhanced. Love will forever